Hello, I'm Tan the Tam BOTC channel, and I want to just quickly say that most of my videos, at least commentary-wise, for right now and probably through February, I will have to probably say, hopefully sometime March, I will have some new hardware that will help me record both commentary and video, like video games and stuff, in a better quality. So hopefully then. Hate my double chin. But I'm going to do, I have a couple of video ideas using the camera, and one of the ideas today is I will be reading, and this will be with probably a couple of books. Not the whole books, because I don't think the camera can fit like a really long ass video or videos, and I'm not sure, but I don't want to test. And if I still might stream games. It's just I have to test the audio. If the audio is still giving me problems, then they will be commentary less games. They will just be gameplay mainly. And if live streaming for whatever reason, because the thing I live stream mostly, I would live stream on Twitch, but I don't use Twitch much anymore, and my videos don't stay up there anyways, because I'm not even partnered with them, honestly, and I don't care to be in the future. Same with YouTube. I don't know if I'll ever be partnered with them. It would be better if my channel was, ad-free. And today I want to read like a chapter of one of my favorite sequences from books. Two of them that I want to do is the It book scene with the drain scene with Georgie and Pennywise, and I'm gonna frickin' nostalgia critic like background, and the one I'm doing today, which is the Balrog sequence from Lord of the Rings. And I kind of want to do the Clash of the Titans. I have a Clash of the Titans book with the Medusa sequence. I want to do that. That's like one of my favorite movie scenes from the 1981 Harryhausen, Ray Harryhausen, Clash of the Titans film. Love that movie. It's one of my favorites. My friend watched half of that movie, and ironically, we were just stopping. He wanted us to stop just before we got to Medusa, and it sucked. So I told him at least watch a scene on YouTube of this, because it's one of my favorite sequences. I even love the build-up from the witches down to the ferrymen, and then the two-headed dog, seeing there's a lot of more visual storytelling. There's not a whole lot of talking almost the whole thing. Well, mostly talking during the witch scene, but yeah. And they share an eye and a vision through that eye. But yeah, I want to read the Balrog sequence, and going through this recently. It's hard when you're holding a camera and a book. Here it is. On page, is this 360? Yeah, 360. I see 361. Just a cross. Oh man, this is going to be a pain in the ass. So this is chapter 5, The Bridge of Kazad-Dûm. Sorry if I do mispronounce some words, but I'm sure I know enough about the names and words in this that how to pronounce them, especially the names of these characters like Gimli, Gandalf, Balin. But there might be a couple other words that might trip me over, so I do apologize for that. And you might get a weird angle of my face, unless you want me to face the book with the camera. But it's proving to be difficult. Let's actually see. Oh no, I don't know if there's. I'm hoping that does that flip the camera around? Let's see. That did not flip the camera around. I don't know what that did. I don't know what that did, honestly. So, man, this is difficult. It doesn't help that my hands are naturally shaky. I have a problem with my hands in general, where I shake. So Guess I'll just start at the beginning, and I might end it a little earlier. The company of the ring stood silent beside the tomb. Here, I'll rest it on my arm here. This'll help. The company stood silent beside the tomb of Balin. Frodo thought of Bilbo and his long friendship with the dwarf, and Balin's visit to the Shire long ago. In that dusty chamber in the mountains, it seemed, 1,000 years ago, and on the other side of the world. At length they stirred, and looked up, and began to search for anything that would give them tidings of Balin's fate, or show what had become of his folk. Where was another smaller door, on the other side of the chamber, under the shaft. By both the doors they could now see that many bones were lying, and among them were broken swords and axe heads, and cloven shields and helms. Some of the swords, it's pretty hard to breathe in this freaking thing, were croaked orc scimitars with blackened blades. There were many recesses cut into the rock of the walls, and in them were large iron-bound chests of wood. All had been broken and plundered, but beside the shattered lid of one there lay the remains of a book. It had been slashed and stabbed and partly burned, and it was so stained with black and other dark marks, like old blood, that little of it could be read. Gandalf lifted it carefully, but the leaves crackled, and broke as he laid it on the slab. He pored over it for some time without speaking. Frodo and Gimli, standing at the side, could see, as he gingerly turned the leaves, that they were written by many different hands in runes, both of Moria and of Dale. Uh-oh. Maybe this isn't a good time to read. Here, let me do this. Because now it's saying my battery's at 15%. Ugh. Here's the charger. That's a great timing. Love it. Oh, that's right. This isn't a very long cord, though. Is there anything I can kind of... Oh, I can use this. Ugh. Does it change the... Oh, it does. That's cool. It's not... I got a Ninja Turtles shirt on. It's not, Here, I'll use this as well. Move out of the way, controller. Here, will this work? If I put this on top. Oh, come on. This video is on to a great start, don't you think? Such a flattering point of view of me. Oh my gosh, it's just sliding. What the hell? Can you stay on, please? Is there a reason you're sliding like this? Oh, that's because of the surface of the thing I'm putting it on. There we go. That's perfect, except for the flattering point of view. Freaking dumbass thing. There, the charger's in, everything should be fine. Sorry if you look at a back of a book for a while. Where did I go? Beside the shattered lid. Okay, there were many recesses cut in the rock, walls, and in them there were large iron-bound chests of wood. Hold on, my legs are uncomfortable in this position though. Bound chests of wood because I got it on there. All had been broken and plundered, but beside the shattered lid of one there lay the remains of a book. It was okay already. Crackle broke as he laid it on the slab. He pored over it for some time without speaking. Frodo and Gimli, standing at his side, could see, as he gingerly burned the leaves, that they were written by many different hands, in runes both of Moria and of Dale, and here and there in Elvish script. At last Gandalf looked up. It seemed to be a record of the fortunes of Balin's folk, he said. I guess that it began with their coming to Dimril Dale, nigh on 30 years ago. The pages seem to have numbers referring to the years after their arrival. The top page is marked 1 to 3, so at least 2 are missing. From the beginning, listen to this. We drove out orcs from the great gate and guard. I think the next word is blurred and burned. Probably room. We slew many in the bright. I think sun in the dale. Floy was killed by an arrow. He slew the great. Then there is a blur following the Floy, under grass near Mirror, where the next line or 2 I cannot read. Then comes we have taken the 21st hall of North End to dwell in. There is I cannot read what. A shaft is mentioned. Balin has set up his seat in the chamber of Mazarbul. The chamber of records, said Gimli. I guess that is where we now stand. Well, I can read no more for a long way, said Gandalf, except the word gold, and Durin's axe, and something helm. Then Balin is now Lord of Moria. That seems to end a chapter. After some stars, another hand begins, and I see we found true silver, and later the word well forged, and then something I have at it mithril, and the last 2 lines, Urin to seek for the upper armories of Third Deep, something go westwards, a blur to Holden Gate. Gandalf paused and set a few leaves aside. There are several pages of the same sort, rather hastily written and much damaged, he said, but I can make little of them in this light. Now there must be a number of leaves missing, because they begin to be numbered 5, the 5th year of the colony, I suppose. Let me see. No, they are too cut and stained. I cannot read them. We might do better in the sunlight. Wait. Here is something. A large, bold hand using an Elvish script. That would be Uri's hand, said Gimli, looking over the wizard's arm. He could write well and speedily, and often use the Elvish characters. I fear he had ill tidings to record in a fair hand, said Gandalf. The first clear word is sorrow, but the rest of the line is lost, unless it ends in estray. Yes, it must be astray, followed by day being the 10th of November. Balin, Lord of Moria, fell in Dimril Dale. He went alone to look in Mirror. An orc shot him from behind a stone. he slew the orc, but many more, up from the east, up the silver lode. The remainder of the page is so blurred that I can hardly make anything out, but I think I can read. We have barred the gates, and then can hold them long if, and then, perhaps, horrible and suffer. Poor Bolin, he seems to have kept the title that he took for less than 5 years. I wonder what happened afterwards. But there is no time to puzzle out the last few pages. Here is the last page of all. He paused and sighed. It is grim reading, he said. I fear their end was cruel. Oh, he paused and sighed without saying it accidentally. Okay. Feared their end was cruel. Listen, we cannot get out. We cannot get out. They have taken the bridge and second hall, Flare, Elone, and Nolly fell there. Then there are 4 lines speared, so that I can only read went 5 days ago. The last line run, the pool is up to the wall of Westgate. The watcher in the water took Oin. He cannot get out. The end comes, and then drums. Drums in the deep. I wonder what that means. The last thing written is in a trailing scroll of elf letters. They are coming. There is nothing more. Gandalf paused and stood in silent thought. A sudden dread and a horror of the chamber fell on the company. We cannot get out, muttered Gimli. It was well for us that the pool had sunk a little, and that the watcher was sleeping down at the southern end. Gandalf raised his head and looked around. They seemed to have made a last stand by both doors, he said, but there were not many left by that time. So ended the attempt to retake Moria. It was a valiant but foolish. The time is not yet come yet. Now, I fear we must say farewell to Balin, son of Fundun. Here he must lie in the halls of his fathers. We will take this book, the book of Mazarbul, and look at it more closely later. You had better keep it, Gimli, and take it back to Dane. If you get a chance, it will interest him, though it will grieve him deeply. Come, let us go. The morning is passing. Which way shall we go? Asked Boromir. Back to the hall, answered Gandalf, but our visit to that room has not been in vain. I know where we are. This must be, as Gimli says, the chamber of Mazarbul, and the hall must be the 21st of the north end. Therefore we should leave by the eastern arch of the hall, and bear right and south, and go downwards. The 21st hall should be on the 7th level. That is 6 above the level of the gates. Come now, back to the hall. Gandalf had hardly spoken these words when there came a great noise, a rolling boom, that seemed to come from depths far below, and to tremble in the stone at their feet. They sprang towards the door in alarm. Doom, doom. It rolled again, as if huge hands were turning the very caverns of Moria into the vast drum. Then there came an echoing blast. A great horn was blown. in the hall, and answering horns and harsh cries were heard further off. There was a hurrying sound of many feet. "They are coming!" cried Legolas. "We cannot get out," said Gimli. "Trapped!" cried Gandalf. "Why did I delay? Here we are, caught, just as they were before. But I was not here then. We will see what." Doom, doom, came the drum beat, and the walls shook. "Slam the doors and wedge them," shouted Aragorn, "and keep your packs on the long as you can. We may get a chance to cut out our way out yet." "No," said Gandalf. "We must not get shut in. Keep the east door ajar. We will go that way, if we get a chance." Another harsh horn call and shrill cries rang out. Feet were coming down the corridor. There was a ring and clatter as the company drew their swords. Glamdring shone with a pale light, and Sting glinted at the edges. Boromir set his shoulder against the western door. "Wait a moment. Do not close it," said Gandalf. He sprang forward to Boromir's side and drew himself up to his full height. "Who comes hither to disturb the rest of Balin, Lord of the Moria?" he cried in a loud voice. There was a rush of hoarse laughter, like a fall of sliding stones into a pit. Amid the clamor, a deep voice was raised in command. "Doom, boom, doom," went the drums in the deep. With a quick movement, Gandalf stepped before the narrow opening of the door and thrust forward his staff. There was a dazzling flash that lit the chamber and the passage outside. For an instant the wizard looked out. Arrows whined and whistled down the corridor as he sprang back. "There are orcs, very many of them," he said, "and some are large and evil, black orcs of Mordor. For the moment they are hanging back, but there is something else there, a great cave troll, I think, or more than one. There is no hope of escape that way, and no hope at all if they come at this other door as well," said Boromir. "There is no sound outside here yet," said Aragorn, who was standing by the eastern door listening. "The passage on this side." Let's check if the recording's still going good. "Plunges straight down a stair. It plainly does not lead back towards the hall, but it is no good flying blindly this way, with the pursuit just behind. We cannot block the door. Its key is gone, and the lock is broken, and it opens inwards. We must do something to delay the enemy first. We will make them fear the chamber of Mazarbul," he said grimly, feeling the edge of his sword. Enduril. Heavy feet were heard in the corridor. Boromir flung himself against the door and heaved to it too. Then he wedged it with a broken sword blades and splinters of wood. The company retreated to the other side of the chamber, but they had no chance to fly yet. There was a blow on the door that made it quiver, and then it began to grind slowly open, driving back the wedges. A huge arm and shoulder with a dark skin of greenish scales was thrust through the widening gap. Then a great, flat, toeless foot was forced through below. There was a dead silence outside. Boromir leaped forward and hewed at the arm with all his might, but his sword rang, glimmered aside, and fell from his shaken hand. The blade was notched. Suddenly, and to his own surprise, Frodo felt a hot wrath blaze up in his heart. "The Shire!" he cried, and springing beside Boromir, he stooped and stabbed with sting at the hideous foot. There was a bellow, and the foot jerked back, nearly wrenching sting from Frodo's arm. Black drops dripping from the blade and smoked on the floor. Boromir hurled himself against the door and slammed it again. "One of the Shire!" cried Aragorn. Oops, I didn't cry loud enough. The hobbit's bite is deep. You have a good blade, Frodo, son of Drogo." There was a crash on the door, followed by crash after crash. Rams and hammers were beating against it. It cracked and staggered back, and the opening grew suddenly wide. Arrows came whistling in, but struck the northern wall and fell harmlessly to the floor. There was a horn blast and the rush of feet, and orcs, one after another, leaped into the chamber. How many there were, the company could not count. The affray was sharp, but the orcs were dismayed by the fierceness of the defense. Legolas shot two through the throat. Gimli hewed the legs from under another that had sprung up on Balin's tomb. Boromir and Aragorn slew many. That when 13 had fallen, the rest fled shrieking, leaving the defenders unarmed, except for Sam, who had a scratch along the scalp. A quick duck and saved him, and he had felled his orc. A sturdy thrust with his barrow blade. A fire was smoldering in his brown eyes that would have made Ted Sandyman step backwards if he had seen it. Now it is time," cried Gandalf. I didn't cry loud enough again. "Let us go before the troll returns." But even as they retreated, and before Pippin and Merry had reached the stair outside, a huge orc chieftain, almost man-high, clad in black mail from head to toe, leaped into the chamber behind him. His followers clustered in the doorway. His broad, flat face was swart. His eyes were like coals, and his tongue was red. He wielded a great spear. With a thrust of his huge hide shield, he turned Boromir's sword and bore him backwards, throwing him to the ground. Diving under Aragorn's blow with the speed of a striking snake, he charged into the company and thrust with his spear straight at Frodo. The blow caught him on the right side, and Frodo was hurled against the wall and pinned. Sam, with a cry, hacked at the spear shaft, and it broke. Oh no, his penis. But even as the orc flung down the truncheon and swept out his scimitar, Andúril came down upon his helm. There was a flash like flame, and the helm burst asunder. The orc fell with cloven head. His followers fled howling, as Boromir and Aragorn sprang at them. Doom, doom, went the drums in the deep. The great voice rolled out again. "Now!" shouted Gandalf. "Now is the last chance! Run for it!" Aragorn picked up Frodo where he lay by the wall and made for the stair, pushing Merry and Pippin in front of him. The others followed, but Gimli had to be dragged away by Legolas. In spite of the peril, he lingered by Balin's tomb with his head bowed. Boromir hauled the eastern door to grinding open its hinges. It had great iron rings on either side, but could not be fastened. "I am all right," gasped Frodo. "I can walk. Put me down." Aragorn nearly dropped him in the amazement. "I thought you were dead," he cried. So not good on the crying part. Whatever. "Not yet," said Gandalf, "but there is no time for wonder. Off you go, all of you, down the stairs. Wait a few minutes for me at the bottom, but if I do not come soon, go on. Go quickly, and choose paths leading right and downwards. We cannot we cannot leave you to hold the door alone," said Aragorn. Hopefully it's still recording. Okay, it's recording for a little bit now. I think we're almost done here because there's only 10 pages to this. Yeah. Okay, it's 12. I miscounted by 2, but I might stop at a certain point before the other 2, so keep that in mind. Or the other 1. Depends. "Do as I say," said Gandalf fiercely. "Swords are no more use here. Go!" The passage was lit by no shaft, and was utterly dark. They groped their way down a long flight of steps, and then looked back, but they could see nothing, except high above them the faint glimmer of the wizard's staff. He seemed to be still standing on guard by the closed door. Frodo breathed heavily and leaned against Sam, who put his arms about him. They stood peering up the stairs into the darkness. Frodo thought he could hear the voice of Gandalf above, muttering words that ran down the slope's roof with a sighing echo